Hey y'all, it's Miranda. Happy October. I'm super thrilled to share these next 5 artists for October because they are going to be very much related to the theme of the season coming and also give us those right vibes of chilling, eerie, but infectious artworks. This is probably going to be my favorite top 5 artists of the month because I love October and I love the start of the fall. And I love eerie, awe-striking, just the overall energy of the unexplainable, the sublime, the overtaking, the undeniable but foreign feelings you get from seeing artworks like these. So these particular artists I'm super excited to share with y'all for sure. So to start off our pleasantly eerie list of artists, the first one I want to talk about is an artist that I've always seen in passing whenever I do see people who are very inspired and admire this particular artist's work. And this particular Irish-British figurative painter is, of course, Francis Bacon. He is a very polarizing artist in the very best ways to me. Whenever I see his work, I find it to be very striking right away and engulfs you really in the art and gives you that sense of overwhelming dread in a way, allowing you to rethink certain ideals and rethink figurative drawing, geometric shapes. It really gives you a new perspective of how you can see certain figures and see certain objects in a most definitely overtaking and breathtaking, but also terrifying way. He's given us so many works that are completely overtaking and completely enveloped in the darkness, and the idea of showing figures in very demonic, very obscure and off-putting in a great way kind of manners. And I can really appreciate that, especially at this time of the year. I think that it's great to have an artist like this to view and admire and get to know a little bit more, because as an observer of art and as an artist myself, I tend to find the beauty in all art, but I of course definitely find beauty in his art. And there's something very, I wouldn't even say the word ugly, like I said, off-putting really is the best way to put it. I find that off-putting nature and the very distorted mannerisms of his figures to be absolutely beautiful and raw and enveloping. And as a special little bonus, because again, I love this time of the year and this is going to be my favorite month to do my top 5 artists, I wanted to make it 6 artists because there's a bonus artist that I was coming upon whenever I was doing my research on Francis Bacon, and his name is very similar in a way, so I figured it would just fit best for me to kind of showcase this next artist as a bonus artist with Francis. And I want to say his full name, so I'm going to read it and make sure I do it right. Francisco José Goya y Lucientes. He is a Spanish painter, of course, and overall his work, like Francis Bacon, has a very macabre and ominous nature to it that I find very intriguing and insightful in a lot of ways whenever they showcase these figures and these subjects within their work. I think that it's overall so breathtaking, overtaking, and exciting. Now on to the second official artist on my list is a German/Russian artist who definitely focused more on the dark arts and the overall figures as well, like the first 2 artists, and showcased a lot of that black and white aesthetic, the contrast of darkness and lights, and really giving that perspective on different figures and subjects on a storytelling level, really. And this particular Russian-German artist, of course, being Sasha Schneider. This artist gives a lot of atmosphere, striking moments, figures in very conflicting and immediate, strict poses, really. It just overall gives a certain glow in a lot of his work, literally a glow, the light showing through the dark, and a lot of different dark subject matter. A lot of these figures are male figures and give you a certain sense of dread and almost helplessness. A lot of his work, whenever I tend to see it, I'm sure others feel the same way, there's a certain sense of doom, undeniable sense of it. And like I think I'm gonna say about all these artists, I find that to be very beautiful and inspiring. The next artist on my list is, to me, has a lot of similarities and beauty to the aesthetic that Mariam Khan had. And I find that to be so interesting and so cool that I found this kind of comparison. This particular artist definitely gears more towards the obscured, dark nature. And this particular Chinese painter is Xie Li. I find it very interesting that he's not only from China, but he currently resides in Paris and has a lot of reflective culture relations to that as well. But aside from that, first and foremost, his work is very, like all of these artworks, very eerie, very dark in subject matter, unsettling in a lot of ways, but definitely focuses on the figures and the different objectifications that you can kind of abstract. In parallel or relation to Mariam Khan, for me, whenever I see his work and doing my research on him again, the color schemes, the brush strokes, the glowing, the expressions of the faces, the expressions of the bodies, the messages within those give me such inspiration again, very similar that Mariam gave me as well, but even more so towards the dark ideals of art and the dark ideals of these figures and what they're struggling with, what they're conflicting with within themselves, with figures around them, other figures in the paintings, things that aren't even within the frame of the painting, but something that is most definitely weighing down on these figures and these artworks. It gives you such a sense of relation to them in a very dark, ominous, undeniable way. And because of all these expressions, these immediate emotions, these undeniable brushstrokes and certainty of just rage or despair, gives the entire atmosphere of a ominous idea and an ominous world that these figures are living in, that even we're living in. And it's kind of showcasing within these paintings just how deep and dark a mindset can go and an artist can take these figures into. In almost the most simplest brushstroke and color choice way, the color choices he's made, they're so simplistic but so immediate and give you that sense of what that emotion is he's trying to convey immediately when you see it. Every single one of his paintings has that, has those emotions, has those tendencies. Whenever I see them, and I'm sure many others feel the same way, it's just overwhelming for me, but in the best way, because it gives me that sense of eeriness and spookiness. And overall, this artist, very similar to Mariam Khan for me, is ever impactful, ever inspiring, and ever expressive in the most inspiring ways. And now onto a self-taught Italian female artist who gives me a lot of inspiration and a lot of influence to what it means to be a self-taught artist and what it means to be a free, expressive female body in this world, really. And this particular artist being, of course, Carol Roman. And for a lot of obvious reasons, I think people, when they first see her work, it is very striking right away, very, maybe some would say off-putting, but I find very inviting and very triggering in the best ways in terms of giving ideas, giving power, giving strength, and giving emotions and energy, particularly to females, to anyone who identifies as a woman, or even just a figure in their own power of their sexuality, of their bodies, of their emotions, of their desires, anything. I think that she gives that power back to a lot of people when they first see her work. Definitely, at least for me. This idea of exposure, sexuality, sensualness, sin, everything that kind of comes with having this sudden desire and urge to just outwardly express and outburst and let things out. Literally, figuratively, emotionally, personally, what have you. These figures, when she draws them and when I see them, it's so freeform. It's just free-handed, immediately expressive, abstracted in a way, but just free. I think free is just the best way I can describe her work. I think that artists like this absolutely must exist within this world of artistic vision and recognizing artists for who they are, as expressive as they are, whatever that may be. I think it's so important for an artist like her to have the recognition that she has and to be the artist that she is within our world, because we need these contrasting ideals and we need these contrasting images and opposing thoughts or ideas that might not relate to others, because you really can't have one without the other. You can't have one idea of an artist group and not have the opposing side of that. And I think that that's very important when you are seeing art, and how expressive it can be and how freeing it can be, because we all have different visions, ideas, and experiences that we want to be able to convey and to have a voice no matter what. I think that because she just wants to convey and showcase her own feelings, her own experiences, her own emotions, and her own characters and ideals is such a great thing to do, and totally should have a safe space within admiring artists. Overall, as a woman in art, I find her to be very passionate, very erotic, and very freeing. Necessary, I should say. The final artist I'd like to talk about is a Kenyan American mixed media artist, an image artist really, is Jamila Okubo. She is, like I said, someone who focuses on imagery and color schemes and shapes within her work, and gives a voice and a power to her community. And her work really focuses on these characters, these color schemes, these shapes and sizes, and certain subjects that really showcase just how powerful and meaningful a community can stand as, and how beautiful it can be. I find her work to be very extraordinary, enticing, and inviting in a lot of ways. But when you really look close to a lot of her work, although they are very bright and vibrant and beautiful, they have very specific subject matters, and they have a very specific power and voice that resides within each one of them. For me, a lot of her artwork showcases almost a fairy tale storyboard-like meaning. The color schemes alone are very outstanding and striking immediately when you see them. Silhouette based and subject matter in terms of spiritualism, very fairy tale-esque, but also very reality based in a lot of ways. The pattern work alone, the perspective within those pattern works is so inspiring. Gives me a sense of texture, a sense of belonging within each of these pattern works, within each of these figures. She is absolutely a necessary figure within the art world in today's time, in our modern day time, because she gives a certain new aspect on imagery and reflection and power. And overall, not only is she an inspiration and impactful artist to me, but very impactful for artists who can relate and have very similar stories and experiences to what she has as well. And I find that to be very special and such a great thing to observe for sure. Alrighty, well that's it. I am so happy to have all 6 of these artists out for the month. I am so thrilled that it's October and just getting so excited for the holidays approaching and the vibes coming. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed getting to know these artists. I definitely enjoyed getting to know them too, and researching on them again, and kind of gathering each one of them and relating them in some ways, but also just getting to know them as their own individual artists, especially just for the subject matter and the overall dark themes and imagery that each one of them beholds. I think it's such a special thing to kind of get to know the scary ideals of art and the dark matter behind artwork and just how far it can really go, because like I said, having one and not the other is just impossible. You have to kind of admire both sides and even everything in between. So by far my favorite video to film, and by far my top favorite artist to get to know and research and talk about too. Happy Halloween and stay safe and enjoy these artists, watch scary movies, and maybe make some scary art. And don't fall too far into the abyss, or do, whatever you prefer.